Alright guys, tonight what I've got for your face balls happens to be one of my absolute favorite TwoSun knives. Now, I know I've done quite a few TwoSuns lately. I'm not just a huge TwoSun fanboy, but I gotta tell you, they are doing just some absolute quality, impressive work, especially for the money. So we'll just get that right out of the way right now. I paid $56.95 for this particular knife. And when you guys see the way that this thing is constructed and the materials that it is made of, man, it is just pretty unbelievable. So let's get to it here. We'll start out here with a few size comparisons because this is not a small knife. So here we got the Spyderco Manix 2. As you can see, it's pretty well dwarfing the Manix 2. And this here's a Spyderco Para 3 lightweight. Move that guy out of the way. And here is the Cold Steel 8015. And as you can see, we're still a little bit larger than the 8015. Although that is a pretty good sized knife. And really, the only knife that I have, which, man, you can't beat that sound. Anyway, the Guardian Tactical Recon Elite. So this is an absolute beast of a knife. And yeah, so as you can see, we're talking about a pretty good sized knife here. So what we got is an overall length of 8.6 inches. We have a blade length of 3.675 inches, so almost 3.7 inch blade length. We have a handle length of just under 5 inches. It's 4.925, so almost 5 inch handle length. And then it is pretty thick, so we're looking at 690 thousandths or 11/16 thick. So, you know, guys, when you have BFHs like what I've got going on here, this thing is just really, really good in hand. It's a real, you know, palm filling knife, super comfortable. It is contoured, and we'll get to that. But so if you do have big hands, this knife is just spectacular, and that's one of the things that I really love about it. But so on with the dimensions here. Blade stock on this guy is 138 thousandths or 3.5 millimeters, and it is full flat grind. And behind the edge thickness, it's extremely slicey, and it ranges anywhere from 16 to 18 thousandths. So, you know, just a really, really good slicing blade. I already got a bunch of fingerprints. It does fingerprint like crazy, this thing. So, but as you can see, it's a pretty stabby looking bastard. I would call this you know, a pretty murdery looking knife, but really super functional, really fantastic. So material wise, what you're looking at here is a blade steel that is in 12C27, and it is a long design, so it is an original design. And you're working with titanium liners, titanium backspacer that's just extremely well done. It's got some really nice kind of functional jimping. And then the orange material here is G10, which you can see is really nicely done. And then you've got carbon fiber bolsters. So ergonomics on this guy, like I said, are just really, really good. You know, you've got this little bit of thumb ramp here with really, really good traction on the thumb ramp. And in the hand, this thing just fits extremely well. You've got this jimping back here on the backspacer, which doesn't stick proud of the knife, but or the handles. However, it is wide enough that it does really provide some excellent traction. And then one of the other things you got going on here is this is polished carbon on the face here, but on these kind of machined scallops, if you will, there is some kind of, like, they left the machining marks in there, and so that also provides some pretty good traction. So, it's just really well done. The handle's really well sculpted, and yeah, it's really nice in that way. Every single edge on this guy is chamfered extremely well. Around the lanyard hole is chamfered really well, and just there really is no hot spots on this guy at all. The liners are done extremely well, and milled titanium pocket clip. Just a really good knife. So action is fantastic. So it is, you do have kind of a proud flipper tab there, but for its overall size, the flipper tab is totally fine. You do have some jimping on the flipper tab, and it's shaped really well. It does kind of hook up right at the end, but super comfortable flipper tab. And the opening hole here, you've got kind of this groove. If I can show it off there, the groove and the hole allows you to do, hit my own hand. Of course, now that I'm doing it here, it allows you to do finger flicks, thumb flicks, all that stuff, so the fidgetability of this knife is really spectacular. Now, one of the things, this is riding on ceramic bearings. It does have a ceramic detent ball. You have to kind of shake it shut, but it's super smooth, and it's just a really great action. But the blade is so lightweight that it doesn't have a whole lot of weight like a big knife like this normally does to swing that blade shut. So if you can see here, the distal taper on this knife is extremely aggressive. So you get out there to the tip and it's extremely thin, which does a fantastic job of slicing. Just a really ultra performance blade here. And in the 12C27 just does a fantastic job. It's a good stainless steel, and yeah, I'm really happy with it for sure. So one of the reasons why I wanted to show this knife off is just to talk about its construction, because it's rather impressive. So because I think that's going to take a little bit here, I'm going to go ahead and take this guy apart, and in true TwoSun fashion, the hardware and fasteners is all really good quality. Everything on here is all T8, which is always really fantastic. It is all stainless steel hardware, and that's pretty standard, at least across the TwoSuns that I've dealt with. And so now that we've got this guy, the screws out of it here, let's get this popped apart. So what we're looking at here, we're going to take this guy all the way apart. So you do have these milled washers, which TwoSun just does a fantastic job with. So this is pretty standard in all the TwoSun knives that I've seen anyway. And so it is kind of a thicker washer, but you can see on the face of this, here, let me wipe it off real quick. On the face of the washer, you can see on the flat areas, you can see that it was ground. So this was ground on like, a surface grinder to make sure they're really true and flat. And then you have this milled out area that's rounded on the bottom for the balls to ride in. And it just provides just phenomenal action. For a knife of this money, it blows my mind that they go these extra steps, and it's just makes for just fantastic action. Really well done. The washers are thick enough, that you're not going to end up with a dished washer if they just threw a flat one in there. But I've seen $500, $600, $700 knives that just have flat washers that are paper thin, and then after no time at all, especially if you ever over tighten your pivot screw, you're going to end up with cupped or dished washers, and that's just sad. But anyway, so let me grab the blade here. Get this guy wiped off. So you can see here you've got the detent hole there, and you can see the detent track. You can see the milled out area for the bearings to ride in, and then you've also got a detent ball ramp, which is very nicely done. And yeah, just a really nice blade that is like I said, just crazy light out here at the end. I mean, you can just tell by holding on to this blade, it's just insanely light out here. Actually, let's throw the scale down here and get an idea of what this, just the blade itself weighs. I forgot to weigh the knife before I took it down, so we'll have to do that at the end here. So you're looking at 34 grams, or almost 35, so 1.228 ounces. So, you know, a blade that's a little bit shy of 4 inches, 3.7 inch blade. It's actually surprisingly light, especially out at the tip. Alright, so here's what we're looking at. There is no weight relieving on these titanium liners here. They are relatively thin, so they didn't necessarily need to do any weight relieving. This knife isn't overly heavy, but you know, really well machined, just really nicely done titanium liners. So I've actually got a magnet here so you can see, but if I do on the hardware, see, we're dealing with stainless steel hardware. So, but titanium liners, which brings me to my next point. Check this out. This thing has got a hardened steel insert on what is truly a titanium liner knife, and that's just amazing to me that they went that extra step. They took the time. You can see here that carbon fiber is milled out, and they just really did a nice job. It's pretty surprising, actually. So you've got the hardened steel insert on a titanium liner knife, and the attention to detail here is just really fantastic. You got the little lock bar relief cut there. Lock bar tension is not horrible. It's not you know, overly done. You can also see that they milled out that G10 underneath there just to give you a little extra relief, which is just really nicely done. Now these handle scales, they've actually glued them together, and we can pull one of these off here just so we can take a look at it. I don't know that I've actually pulled these off before, but the handle scales, the G10 is glued to the carbon fiber. Wow. Yeah, I don't think I have pulled that off because that screw was extremely tight. So let me see here. Hopefully that'll, there we go. So, as you can see here, you know, they did stuff like this right here. You know, that's not just a straight line there between the G10 and the carbon fiber. You know, they milled the two out kind of like a lap joint and then glued those together. Just really nicely done. You can see here the quality of the carbon, just really well done. There's no voids or anything in it, and man, it's just, it amazes me that I bought this knife for $57, and that was shipped to my house. And it's just unbelievable the kind of quality that you can get from some of the Chinese manufacturers. And honestly, it's yeah, the US manufacturers ought to be worried and scared because I mean, it's really amazing the quality and stuff and the materials that you're getting out of China these days. So here we can see the liner here. Now this does have a free spinning pivot. However, I've never had an issue with that with any of the TwoSun stuff. It's never been a problem, and most of the time what they have are O-rings underneath the pivot to keep them from spinning. So you generally don't ever end up with any Loctite or anything like that on a TwoSun knife, which is really fantastic. Loctite's always a pain in the ass to deal with, so if it's not needed, if the machining's done extremely well, you just, generally don't have issues with hardware backing out. So, and I've never had an issue on any of the TwoSun knives with, pivots loosening up over time or anything like that. So, I'll show off one of the bearings here. You can see ceramic caged bearings in nylon. This is pretty standard. This is what I see on just about all the TwoSun knives, this style of bearing. And, standard stop pin. Here's this back spacer. You can see here, again, it's all titanium. Really well done. They chamfered all the edges on here, and then you got a little, different pattern there at the back. Just, you can't beat it, especially for the money. It's pretty impressive. So, let's get this guy back together. So, get this on camera here. So, threw those two spacers in, and what we got going on here, guys, is just screws from the opposite side, and they go into barrel spacers, and through the scales, through the back spacer. We've got a washer here. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and on this guy I'm going to use some KPL Heavy. I've had this for a little while and I've grown pretty fond of it now that I've had it and used it a little bit here. Oop, where's my pivot? So the KPL Heavy seems to work really well. It stays really well, so you don't end up with a bunch of lube flying out onto your blade and whatnot. They did a really good job with this KPL Heavy, so I'm pretty happy with it. If you guys haven't tried it out, let me wipe this bearing off here. This knife was already pretty clean. I've carried it quite a bit, but yeah, it's been definitely one of my favorites due to its size and blade performance is just spectacular on this guy. So yeah, if I don't know if most of you guys are familiar with TwoSun knives, but I'm just cleaning out the blade here. But for most of you guys, if you're not familiar with TwoSun knives, you can the only place that I know of to pick them up is on eBay. But the shipping is relatively fast. Never had any issues there, and the quality has honestly, it's always been exceeded my expectations. So the quality of these things is just super impressive, and I'm simply blown away at what they do for, what you can buy for $50 or $60 is pretty unbelievable. And they super good materials. You can get 12C27 steel, you can get S90V, you can get M390. They do make a lot of knives in D2, which I've had several of. They seem to work extremely well. The D2 is from the torture test, which a couple of them I have tortured quite a bit, using them around in the shop and around our little mini farm, if you will. So now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to add a little bit of oil on the detent track and the ramp here. There we go. I'm also going to put just I'm going to wipe that out real quick. Where's my Q-tip? Okay. So I'm going to put just a little bit of oil right in here, just enough to hold that washer in there while I flip it upside down. Spin it just a little bit to distribute that oil. So this for anyone that's interested in a TwoSun knife or ever kind of worried about its quality and ordering stuff from China, man, I would tell you to at least try it out. If there's a design that you really like, I've just been simply blown away at the quality. And like I said, the stuff is shipping from China, so it does take a little bit of time, but it's generally not terrible. Generally I get things within like 7 to 9 days, something like that. And yeah, it's definitely for the money. It's really, really hard to beat. And, the quality of the hardware and just, it's really impressive what they're doing. And they have some really cool designs. A lot of US designers, Tepe Designs has got a couple of different knives that has been done by TwoSun, and they're really great. M390, and then Wong Designs, he's done several, and Casey Designs, and Mazwan Mokhtar, and just some really great designers, pretty unbelievable quality. I'm just making sure that things are centered up here before I fully tighten these screws. Okay. See here, we got 0 blade play. We're centered. Back that off just a little bit. I'm a little bit tight here, I think. Oh, too much. Now I got blade play. So, let's pull this scale back out here and see what this whole thing weighs. This is, because it's a big knife, 5-inch, almost 5-inch handle and 3.7-inch blade. We're looking at 4.66 ounces. So still, nothing terrible compared to, it dwarfs the Manix 2 in size. But let's just see here, the Manix 2. Yeah, so lighter than the Manix 2, but size comparison is really no comparison because it dwarfs the Manix 2. If I line up the pivots there, you can see it's a lot bigger knife than the Manix 2. So, size to weight I think is really well done. And, again, this is just a fantastic knife. If you got large hands, I don't think you would be at all disappointed with this guy. The only thing about this knife that I could be somewhat critical of is the pocket clip. It's when I first got it, I was looking at it thinking, oh man, that's going to be terrible. It's going to not go in and out of the pocket well at all. And, almost, in my opinion, the ramps on either side here should be flipped around. That steeper ramp should be on the back side, and the longer ramp be on the front. But anyway, the pocket clip does work surprisingly well. It's not my favorite clip by any means, but it is good enough. I mean, you can get it in and out of the pocket. On most all of my pants, this does work extremely well. So, it's not my favorite clip for sure, but I do love the knife enough that the clip it's not bad enough to totally throw, I do have some knives that the clip's just absolutely horrible, and this is not one of those. So, although it's not the best clip I've ever seen, it's not terrible. And I can kind of overlook it, and I might even, do some grinding on that to change it a little bit, just to make it a little nicer and easier to go in and out of pocket. So, anyway, not terrible, but not fantastic. The other thing that's a little bit strange to me, and you can actually see it here in the video, a few of these body screws, the ones that just hold the scales down, sit ever so slightly proud of the scales. And so, it's not a big deal. the heads of the screws are well chamfered, but you can just feel them, that they stick up just slightly proud. And as you can see right there, and of course, you know, the pivot sticks up, but that's intended to. But you can see it's the same on both sides, so it is consistent all the way around. Now, back here, you know, these are the screws that are going through that back spacer and holding the whole knife together. Those are countersunk. I mean, of course, you can still feel them, but they don't stick up proud like these body screws do, or these scale screws, I should say. So, you know, that's one thing that maybe is a little strange. I mean, you know, it is consistent all the way around, so you can see that it's like that on both sides. But, yeah, it's just something that I noticed that feels almost slightly unfinished. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, really. Like I said, I'm really, really nitpicking here, guys. But otherwise, man, everything is just done so well. And like I said, for $56, it's just unbelievable. It's so comfortable in hand. I really like it. The handle in this dimension right here, you're looking at about 7/8 of an inch right here. And then you have kind of this hump. And then back through here, you're right, just over 3/4 of an inch pretty much throughout all of this, and then it gets slightly taller back here at the back. So, you know, it's really, man, I just can't say enough about how well this fits in my hands. You know, and I have big hands. I mean, you're looking at a 5-inch handle there, and, you know, so that's, yeah. So if you have big hands, and I'm, you know, like double XL glove kind of hands, this is just a really, really fantastic knife. So TwoSun TS-127, great knife. Pick one up on eBay, and hopefully you can also get it for $57. So anyway, guys, thanks a lot for checking this thing out, and we'll see you next time.